1.6.6 exercises. We're at the end of chapter 1. Oh my gosh, it's been a ton of work for me. Hopefully you've been getting a lot out of it. In this section, we are asked to state what sort of compound proposition each of the following is, and identify its components, and to do the same for its components. That do the same for its components means that we need to break down the big one into parts and break those parts down into parts until we can't do so anymore. Remember, a compound proposition is one that has other propositions for its components. A basic proposition doesn't. So in other words, we're going to be getting down to the basic propositions. Number one, if it is sunny and windy tomorrow, then we will go sailing or kite flying. Now we have some clue words here. We have an if then and an or, and those are clue words to connectives that we've already seen. One thing that's important to remember is that these connectives are, either one or two place connectives, meaning that they have propositions in those places. So what we're not going to do is just list out a bunch of basic propositions. What we're going to have to do is figure out which propositions fill in those places. Let's see what happens if we consider that and first. Let's put the first part into one place and then the second part into another place. That would mean that the first place of the connective is if it is sunny, and the second place is windy tomorrow, then we will go sailing or kite flying. But that doesn't look right. Neither one of those two things in either place are actually propositions, right? They don't make sense. We actually need that sunny and windy to stay together. It's that thing that forces it to be the case that we will go sailing or kite flying. So what we really have here is first an if-then statement, first a conditional. The antecedent being it is sunny and windy. The consequent being we will go sailing or kite flying. Now the antecedent and the consequent are also compound propositions. So let's break those down into their component parts. The antecedent is actually a conjunction. So let's break that down into its conjuncts. It is sunny tomorrow. It is windy tomorrow. The consequent is actually a disjunction. So let's break that down into its disjuncts. We shall go sailing tomorrow. We shall go kite flying tomorrow. Now, do I need to add the word tomorrow in each one of these cases? You probably didn't, and that's okay. Remember that sentences aren't identical to the propositions they expressed. Sentences are things that are uttered in some kind of context, and it's by that utterance in a context that they express a proposition. If you were to say this whole compound proposition, the whole thing that is number one, and you use that word tomorrow only once, then the person that was listening to you would assume that that word tomorrow, is meted out for each component proposition as well. You don't have to say it because you know that the proposition that's going to be expressed to that person, communicated to that person, is going to include that tomorrow. In the same way, for each one of these components, once they're all broken down, you already kind of know what I mean by each one. You know that I mean that each one's going to be tomorrow. So do you have to write tomorrow? Not really. I wrote tomorrow just to keep everything super clear, but it's okay if you didn't. Number two, if it rains or snows tomorrow, then we shall not go sailing or kite flying. This one is very similar to the last one with one little trick. First, the whole proposition is a conditional. The antecedent is it rains or snows tomorrow. The consequent is we shall not go sailing or kite flying. The antecedent is a disjunction. It rains tomorrow. It snows tomorrow. The consequent of this is actually a negation. So the negand of this is we shall go sailing or kite flying tomorrow. And then once you've gotten it out of that negation, that new proposition here is a disjunction. And now we can break that down into its disjuncts. We shall go sailing tomorrow. We shall go kite flying tomorrow. Number three, either he'll stay here and we'll come back and collect him later, or he'll come with us and we'll all come back together. That word either is actually really nice here because it lets us know that that word or has the entire proposition as its scope. So this is a disjunction. The disjuncts being, he'll stay here and we'll come back and collect him later. He'll come with us and we'll all come back together. The first disjunct is actually a conjunction. He'll stay here, we'll come back and get him later. And that second conjunct is actually also a conjunction. We'll come back later, we'll collect him later. Now let's look at that second disjunct, which was he'll come with us and we'll all come back together. This is actually a conjunction itself, and the conjuncts are he'll come with us, we'll all come back together. Number 4, Jane is a talented painter and a wonderful sculptor, and if she remains interested in art, her work will one day be of the highest quality. Number 4 is a conjunction. The first conjunct is Jane is a talented painter and a wonderful sculptor. The second conjunct is if she remains interested in art, then one day her work will be of the highest quality. The first conjunct is actually also a conjunction. Jane is a talented painter. Jane is a wonderful sculptor. The second conjunct is a conditional. She remains interested in art. Her work will one day be of the highest quality. Number 5, it's not the case that the unemployment rate will both increase and decrease in the next quarter. Number 5 is a negation, and the negand is the unemployment rate will both increase and decrease in the next quarter. This negand is itself a conjunction. The conjuncts are the unemployment rate will increase in the next quarter. The unemployment rate will decrease in the next quarter. Number 6, your sunburn will get worse and become painful if you don't stop swimming during the daytime. Notice what we have here. We have an A if B, and we said before that this is an if B then A. So this is a conditional. The antecedent is you don't stop swimming in the daytime. The consequent is your sunburn will get worse and become painful. Now, the antecedent is actually a negation, and that's kind of hidden in that word don't, right? That means do not. So we have a not there. The negand is you stop swimming in the daytime. The consequent is a conjunction. Your sunburn will get worse. Your sunburn will become painful. Number 7, either Steve won't get the job or I'll leave and all my clients will leave. This is a disjunction. Steve won't get the job, I'll leave, and all my clients will leave. The first disjunct is a negation. Steve will get the job. Again, that word not is kind of hidden in that won't. Won't means will not. The second disjunct is a conjunction. I will leave, all my clients will leave. Number 8, the Tigers will not lose if and only if both Thompson and Thompson get injured. Now, Smith is an Australian, so I'm not really sure if he's a fan of American baseball. He's talking about the Detroit Tigers. And Thompson, I think, is a reference to Tintin. You know, that's the two detectives there. Anyway, this is a biconditional. And notice there's no term for the different component propositions in a biconditional. There's no disjuncts, conjuncts, something like that. So one component is the Tigers will not lose. The other component is Thompson and Thompson get injured. The first biconditional component is a negation. The Tigers will lose. The second biconditional component is a conjunction. Thompson gets injured. Thompson gets injured. Number 9, Fido will wag his tail if you give him dinner at 6 o'clock this evening. And if you don't, then he will bark. This is a conjunction. The first conjunct is Fido will wag his tail if you give him dinner at 6 o'clock this evening. The second conjunct, if you don't, then he will bark. Now that first conjunct is a conditional, and notice that it's in the form A if B, which we said means if B then A. So the antecedent is you give Fido dinner at 6 o'clock this evening. The consequent is he will wag his tail. The second conjunct is also a conditional, but this is just in the form of if A then B. So the antecedent is you don't feed Fido at 6 o'clock this evening, and the consequent is he will bark. Notice also that the antecedent here is a negation. The negand is you give Fido dinner at 6 o'clock this evening, which was actually the antecedent of the first conjunct, which is super confusing, but no big deal. Remember, this was a negation, so we were actually negating this antecedent. Number 10, it will rain or snow today, or else it won't. Sage words. This is a disjunction. One disjunct is it will rain or snow today. The other disjunct is it won't rain or snow today. The first disjunct is itself a disjunction. It will rain today. It will snow today. The second disjunct is a negation. And the negand is it will rain or snow today, which again, confusingly, was that first disjunct. So this again is a disjunction itself, and the disjuncts are it will rain today, it will snow today. As you can see, there are a lot of ways that we can write the sentences themselves, not the propositions, but the sentences that express them. And they come all jumbled up typically in everyday speaking. In the next chapter, we're going to learn a way of writing these that is clear and simple and easy to understand and easy to see the structure of these compound propositions. So for next time, please read section 2.1, Motivation.